Hello friends. You can support me by subscribing to my channel and liking my videos to be notified of new videos. Enjoy! Hello everyone, my name is Selin. I'd like to share with you what happened on my 20th birthday and what happened afterward. First of all, I want you to know that I've never had any serious problems with any of my friends or acquaintances. I've always been a well-intentioned and thoughtful person. I've always tried to act maturely for my age and be understanding of those around me. I was eagerly awaiting my 20th birthday. Because this time, unlike in the past, we were celebrating in a house rented for the day. My closest friends and my loved one were going to be there. Tomorrow is my birthday, and it meant a lot to me. That evening, my father came home and was accompanied by a girl I'd never seen or met before. My mother and I were quite surprised. My father explained that she was his girlfriend's daughter, that his wife had fallen very ill and needed to urgently go to a doctor in another city. He explained that he couldn't find a safe place to leave his daughter, so he'd stay with us for the night. My mother said, "I don't understand anything about this. Doesn't she have a relative or an acquaintance here? She trusts you and gives her daughter away. Besides, can't a grown-up girl stay at home?" Quote, "My father, Murat, and I are very close friends. We always support each other at work. We work together. That's why she trusts me and entrusted her daughter to me." I said it wouldn't be a problem and said, "I've brought this beautiful girl to our home." Frankly, it wasn't right for this conversation to be held with her daughter in front of her, but we were momentarily taken aback. My mother quickly recovered, extended her hand toward the girl, and said, "Welcome, girl. My name is Elif." Quote. The girl said, shyly and in a delicate tone, "Hello, my name is Ice." Then she turned to me, smiled, and said, "I think we're the same age." "How old are you?" I asked. "I'm 20, I said. "Yes." I said I'll be 20 tomorrow. She said, "Yes, I know." I was a little taken aback. I didn't know how she knew it would be my birthday tomorrow. When Ise noticed my surprise, she said, smiling, "Your father told me that." "Yes, you're right. How else would you have known?" I said and smiled. "Mom, I had prepared a nice meal for dinner. We all sat at the table and ate." Ise was constantly looking at me and smiling. She wanted to be my friend. But for some reason, I had never warmed to her since the first moment I saw her. She had been very repulsive to me. So I smiled coldly and turned away again. After dinner, "Mom, I had some work to do. I'm going to my room. I can't help you today." I said, "I'm sorry." When I stood up at that moment, I said, "Ise, I'll help you," and she quickly got to her feet. I went to my room without paying any attention. While I was lingering in my room, I could hear Mom and Ise's laughter. I was really upset. She had only been here for a few hours, but she was already on very good terms with me. I left what I was doing unfinished and went to the kitchen. Mom and I were chatting and laughing. "Mom," I said, "what are you laughing at?" Quote, "Nothing, girl," she said. "Ise is telling me something funny. I'm laughing at her." Quote, "You should have seen the way that mother looked at me. She was practically mocking me. She was watching me with her eyes, not her words." I got angry and went back to my room. I slammed the door shut and started pacing back and forth. I thought my mother's attitude would make her angry and come after me, but I was wrong. No one came to make up with me. I could still hear their voices after I entered the room. Finally, after a few minutes, the voices stopped. I guess everyone was asleep. I went to bed and tried to close my eyes, but I couldn't. That girl's face, her smile, her gaze kept flashing before my eyes. I'd never loved her. I wanted her out of this house as soon as possible. I didn't know why I felt this way. Maybe it was because I had no siblings and had always been my parents' spoiled daughter. I managed to sleep, albeit with difficulty. That night, I dreamed of Ise. We were walking down a long, dark road with her. I didn't know where we were going. "Ise, where are we going? Why is it so dark?" I said. Ise turned her face towards me and smilingly said, "My house." I asked, "Where is your house?" Echeli pointed to a place. When I looked in the direction she indicated, I saw only a grave in the distance. The gravestone was pitch black. We took a few more steps and arrived at that grave. The grave, which had seemed quite far away from us a few seconds ago, was now right next to us. "How did this happen?" Ise held out her hand to me and said, "Let's go to my house. I really want to show you there." Quote, "No, I don't want to go into that grave. Please stay away from me," I said suddenly and looked at Isai's face. His face was pitch black, and his eyes were pure white. That strange smile on his face gave me goosebumps. I took a few steps back and stayed away from me. "Don't touch me," I said. Even though he insisted on pushing me into that grave a few times, I said no. He didn't say anything and started to walk away from me, into the darkness. After he left, I was left alone by the grave. I turned and looked at the grave again. The inside of the grave was like an endless void. There was a very deep darkness inside. Every time I looked there, my head spun. I felt like I was going to fall into it at any moment. I wanted to pull back and get away, but I couldn't. My body felt paralyzed. After struggling in this nightmare for a while longer, I finally opened my eyes. When I woke up, it was still dark. I picked up my phone and checked the time. It was almost morning. I got up and went to the kitchen. I got a glass of water. As I was about to go back to my room, I saw someone standing in front of the living room window. My heart clenched the moment I saw it. I called out, "Mom, is that you?" But no answer came. It was dark inside. Only the moonlight was shining through the window, so I couldn't see the face of the person standing there. I wanted to turn on the lights in the house. I wanted to see who it was. The moment I turned on the lights, whoever was there suddenly disappeared. I was stunned. I quickly checked around, but there was indeed no one home. I turned off the lights and returned to my room. I pulled my head under the covers and lay down on the bed. At that moment, I held my breath because there was a strange whisper in the room. I wasn't sure where it was coming from. I got up again and turned on the light. I checked every inch of the room, but found nothing. Just as I was about to turn off the light and go back to bed, I noticed movement under the bed. I slowly approached the bed. Just as I was about to bend down and look underneath, all the lights suddenly went out. The whole place was pitch black, and I was greeted by a pair of eyes. I was terrified. I jumped to my feet and ran out of the room. I reached my parents' bedroom door. I knocked repeatedly, but no one answered. With difficulty, I opened the door and went inside. What I saw shocked me. My parents were hanging from the ceiling. Their bodies were covered in blood. I ran to them, hugging their feet and crying, "Mom, Dad, wake up and open your eyes. What happened to you?" Now that I think about it, that action seemed pointless. But at that moment, my mind was completely blown. They were dead and had abandoned me. For a moment, I considered calling the ambulance and the police. I left my parents' room and returned to my own room. I immediately picked up the phone and called the police. A few seconds later, I heard a woman's voice on the other end. I immediately explained the situation. I told the woman about my mother and father. I asked them to come immediately. However, the woman on the other end said something in a very low voice. I told her, "You're speaking so softly that I can't understand what you're saying," but she continued in the same tone. I brought the phone even closer to my ear. I tried to understand what she was saying, and I stood frozen in place. The woman was saying something in Arabic. It was as if she were praying, but it was such a prayer that my hair stood on end. "Have you lost your mind? What are you saying?" Quote, I asked. The woman suddenly started shouting, "You are filthy. I hate you." Quote, she said and laughed. At that moment I threw the phone in my hand to the ground. I ran towards the front door. I was about to open the front door and go out into the street, when I suddenly stopped. Because the street was covered from end to end with a cemetery. Different screams and moans were coming from each grave. I wanted to turn around and go back inside, but this time I found my mother and father covered in blood. Is was standing right next to them. She had that ridiculous smile on her face again. She held her family out to me. "Come on, you come with us," she was saying. I could not stand it anymore and ran out and called for help. At that moment I felt someone grab my arms and start shaking me. When I opened my eyes for a moment, I saw my mother next to her. My mother asked me, "My daughter, why are you screaming? What happened?" Quote, there was fear in her eyes. She was truly worried about me. I raised my head and looked around. The weather had brightened, it was morning. What I had experienced, what I had seen, was all just a nightmare. I hugged my mother and started crying. I asked her, "Please, please." My mother said, "Why are you crying, daughter?" When I said, "Mom, I had a really bad nightmare. Please let me tell you," Is came in and said, "Are you afraid of nightmares? I thought you were brave too." Quote, and started laughing. While I wanted to answer her, my mother looked at me and started laughing. It was as if my mother was with her. I got nervous at that moment. I didn't even want to talk to my mother. Okay, get out of my room. I'll get dressed. I have some work to do outside, I said. My mother stood up without any objection, and continued to look at me, still laughing. This attitude made me very uncomfortable. They left the room after a few seconds. I got up and got dressed. I left the house without even having breakfast. Today is my birthday. I called all my friends and told them to meet me in front of the house we rented at 7 o'clock in the evening. They said, "Okay, we'll all be there, don't worry." After walking around outside for a while to clear my mind, I came back home. I took the dress I bought for my birthday and a few other things with me as I was leaving the house. My father said to me, "My daughter, where are you going without Ise?" He said. At that moment, I felt like boiling water had poured over me. Now, this devil's face. I was going to take my daughter with me. "Dad, you know I'll be with my friends. Ise doesn't know anyone there. Besides, my friends might get uncomfortable seeing someone they don't know. That's why I said I didn't think it was appropriate for her to come tonight." My dad, "Would something like that happen, my daughter? Ise is a very friendly and sincere person. I believe she'll get along with your friends right away and become good friends." Ise said, "Let her come with you." I wanted to object again, but when I saw those disturbing looks my parents were giving me, I kept quiet. If I objected to her coming, there would be an argument. I didn't want to upset my father about this, so I said, "Okay, let her come." I quickly changed her clothes without wasting any time, and I came over. I didn't say a word to her the whole way, but I could feel her turning around and smiling at me with those disturbing looks from time to time. I didn't speak to her. I didn't even look at her. Finally, we arrived in front of the house we'd rented. It's a little far from the city. It's a nice 2-story house surrounded by trees. The moment we got out of the car, she was right next to us. 2 more cars arrived. Some of our friends had arrived. The others would be arriving shortly. We went inside without wasting any time and started getting ready. It was a clean place frequently rented for parties. We finished the preparations in a short time. Meanwhile, my other friends arrived. We were 4 guys and 6 girls in total. We were going to hold our party on the first floor of the house and disperse to our homes around 1 a.m. The party had been donated. Everything was going smoothly. I hadn't even had time to introduce Ise to my friends, but she had acted before me. She had immediately bonded with my friends and had already made amends. There was someone in our group I'd liked for a long time. He was also mentioned. He was tall, dark, and handsome. I'd recently noticed he had feelings for me, so I specifically invited him for his birthday. Maybe tonight we could get closer, start a relationship. Everything was going according to plan, but suddenly I realized he wasn't around. Ise wasn't there either. I looked around, wondering where they were. I asked my friends, but no one knew anything. I went out into the garden. I couldn't believe what I saw. Anna and Ise were chatting under a tree a little away from the house. I wanted to go up to them and ask them why they were there and what they were talking about. I had gotten a few steps closer when Ise suddenly kissed Anil on the lips. The moment I saw that scene, my nerves were in turmoil. I didn't know what to do. There was no point in going to them anymore. My thoughts, my dreams, my hopes, and most importantly, my birthday. Everything was ruined. I quickly went inside without making myself visible. I went straight to the bathroom. I was trying hard not to cry, because if I did, my makeup would be ruined. I tried to calm down by taking deep breaths. Just then, one of her friends, Daphne, came in and saw me like that. Daphne approached me and said, "What happened? Are you okay?" Quote, "Yes, I'm okay, but I just want to relax a little." I said, "I'll go upstairs and lie down." Daphne said, "Come on, let me help you," and grabbed my arm. As she was pulling me up, I turned around. Ise was standing in a corner, watching me and smiling again. My hatred for her had now completely disappeared. It had grown. He had become an enemy in my eyes. Daphne brought me into the room. I said, "Please go, I want to be alone. I'll be back soon," and sent him away. After he left, I couldn't stop crying. It was the first time I'd truly fallen in love with a man. Now, someone I'd only met yesterday had entered my life and taken the man I loved from me. I had to hold him accountable for this. I can't even describe the hatred I felt inside me. These thoughts were overwhelming my mind. I was practically suffocating. Just then, the door to the room opened. Thinking it was Daphne, I didn't even look up. I said, I want to be alone, but there was no answer. I looked up at the door. The door opened, but no one was there. I thought someone was playing a joke on me. I stood up angrily, slamming the door. As I turned around and walked towards the bed, I ran into Daphne. She was standing motionless next to the bed. When did you come in? Are you kidding me? Get out of here. I don't want to argue with you, she said. Daphne didn't say anything. This time, she didn't have that familiar smile on her face. Her eyes were full of hatred. It was as if she, too, were angry about something. I asked him, are you going to get out of here by yourself, or do you want me to take your arm and throw you out? He still didn't move. I went over to him and tried to grab his arm, but I paused for a moment because his hands and feet were terracotta. I lifted my head and looked into his eyes. They were pitch black. He could talk motionlessly, his mouth not moving. I couldn't understand what he was saying because it was in a different language. He was repeating the same words over and over. As he repeated them, whispers began to rise from the room. These whispers seemed to echo in my head. I covered my ears with my hands and started screaming, "Get out of here. Please don't hurt me." He disappeared from my sight for a moment and appeared right behind me. I could feel his long nails in my hair. That terrifying voice was in my ears again. He was whispering something. I felt a heat rising up from my toes. It was as if my body was on fire. I began to pray inwardly. After a few seconds, the feeling disappeared completely. The whispers had also disappeared. Everything seemed calm. I was standing in the middle of the room. I didn't understand what I was experiencing at that moment. Had I had a nightmare after falling asleep, or had I gotten up and had a momentary paralysis? Which of my experiences was real? Which wasn't a dream? I couldn't decide. Being alone in this room wasn't good for me. I wanted to go back to my friends and spend time with them and forget these bad events. After all, I'd been waiting for this party for a long time. I had to stop letting anything upset me, at least not today. I pulled myself together a bit, went back downstairs. I freshened up my makeup, and returned to my friends. When I got to them, I saw they were all gathered around Essen. They were laughing and having fun. What happened? What are you laughing at? I asked. They said, "Ise is such a fun girl. She's our friend from now on." I said, "Friends, let's cut the cake." We all gathered around the table. The candles were lit. Just as I was about to blow them out, I asked, "Ise, why don't you make a wish?" I ignored her. I took a breath and wanted to blow again, when Ise said, in a harsher tone, "Make a wish." This time, her voice was very strange. It was terrifying. I looked at her and said, "Okay, I'm making it," and I silently wished for this girl to get out of my life as soon as possible and go back to my old life. I thought everyone would applaud me after I blew out the candles, but I was wrong. Everything went silent for a moment. No one was turning on the lights. No one was making a sound. What happened, friends? Are you okay? I asked. No one answered. She reached out my hand. I wanted to grab my phone from the table, but I realized there was no table in front of me. In fact, there was nothing around me. There was only darkness. I called out to my friends repeatedly, but no one answered. As I circled around, I suddenly stopped. A pair of eyes were watching me from a distance. They looked truly terrifying. I wanted to step back and escape those eyes. As I ran, I heard terrifying voices behind me. Those voices still give me goosebumps to this day. I screamed repeatedly. I screamed. I called for help, but no one could hear me. Suddenly, I tripped over something and fell onto the wet ground. The ground was starting to suck me in. It was like I was in a swamp. I couldn't see anything. Everything was pitch black. Then a light appeared in the distance. Thanks to that light, I realized I was in a pit, and that the pit was pulling me in. "Help!" I shouted, "Someone get me out of here." At that moment, all my friends started to gather around the pit, one by one. They were all watching me with eyes full of hatred. I shouted, "Why aren't you helping? Why are you looking at me like that?" They said, "You deserve this." They spoke in unison. The expressions on their faces were very strange. It was as if they weren't themselves. It was as if someone else or something else was controlling them. They picked up stones and soil from the ground and started throwing them at me. They were all working together to cover me. I sank even deeper into the sand. I could no longer breathe. Trying to catch my breath one last time, I opened my eyes behind the table. My friends had gathered around me. They were waiting for me to blow out the candles. I looked at them all with fearful eyes. Ise smiled, saying, "Make a wish for me and blow it out with the candle." I looked at Ise. She seemed normal, but I was afraid that everything would happen again. "Please don't turn off the lights. I don't want to blow out these candles," I said. My friends were surprised. They didn't understand why I was acting like this, but they didn't insist because they noticed I was uncomfortable. We cleaned up the situation and cut the cake, but everyone was spoiled. Nobody wanted to have fun anymore. Ise came to me and asked, "Are you okay? Is everything okay?" I didn't answer. I stood up and went over to my other friends. Noticing my discomfort, Neil came to me. "What happened? Is everything his fault? Something's wrong." Quote, he said. I looked into my eyes and couldn't help but say, "You've found yourself a boyfriend." "Congratulations," I said. Neil also asked, "What boyfriend?" I said, "Don't deny it, I've seen you outside. You were very close and intimate." Quote, I said, "No, I haven't gone out since I got here. I was always inside. I was with friends." "You probably saw wrong," he said. I paused at that moment. Maybe what I saw outside was a nightmare too. For a moment, everything flashed before my eyes like a movie strip. All that stress, fatigue, and sadness. When I realized that Arnold hadn't gotten close to Isel, I drifted off. "I didn't really do anything like that, did you?" I said. "You haven't gone out with anyone." "Yes, I haven't gotten close to anyone. You can believe me," he said and smiled. A sense of happiness washed over me at that moment. I stood up immediately and put on a beautiful song. I invited my friends to dance. We danced and had fun until midnight. I was very tired. I wanted to rest a little and have a drink. As I was about to sit down, Anil grabbed my arm and said, "Where are you going?" "The fun wasn't over," he said. I came closer to his ear, saying, "I'm so tired. I want to rest for a bit." Quote, at the same time, Anil leaned in to say something, so our lips accidentally touched. We were both a little embarrassed, but then we laughed. We got ourselves something to drink and went outside. We were looking for a quiet place to get away from the noise and talk. We went outside and retreated to a secluded corner. We were both shy. We didn't know what to say. Our glasses were already empty. Anil looked into my eyes and said, "I want to tell you something, but I don't dare." "I want to tell you something, but exactly the same." "I don't dare either," I said. Actually, we knew exactly what to say. My eyes were already telling me everything. Anil whispered softly, "Please close your eyes." I closed my eyes too. I was waiting for the first kiss of my life, but nothing happened. With my eyes still closed, I said, "Come on, what are you waiting for?" Just then, I heard a giggle. When I opened my eyes, I couldn't resist and screamed, because in front of me stood not Anil, but a creature with a scary face. Its mouth was torn from ear to ear. Its eyes were wide and pointed at one of them. The expression on its face gave me goosebumps. I jumped back, my foot caught on something, and I fell to the ground. That weight was truly terrifying. I quickly gathered myself and stood up. I wanted to run towards the house, but the house was quite far away. How had I gotten so far away from home? The more I ran, the further away the house got from me. I screamed and called my friends, but no one heard me. The music inside was so loud that no one could hear me. I turned and looked back for a moment. The creature was standing right next to me. The moment I turned to it, it grabbed my throat. It began to strangle me. My vision went black at that moment. I fell to the ground, unconscious. I don't know how long I was unconscious. When I opened my eyes, my friends were above me. I asked them, "Where am I? What happened to me?" Quote, one of my friends, Sevda, said, "You went out with a glass of drink in your hand, and a few minutes later you screamed and called us. When we ran outside, we found you lying motionless on the ground. We immediately brought you inside. Then you woke up. Why are you going out alone? These are unfamiliar places. There could be people or animals we don't know. They could scare you." Quote, while he was talking, I was checking around, looking for anything strange. But everything seemed fine. Suddenly, I heard a voice from behind. "The cars are ready. Let's get out of here." "It's very late," he said. I asked, "What time is it?" "It's going to be 3 o'clock soon. You've been unconscious for hours. If you hadn't woken up, we would have called your mother," she said. With difficulty, I pulled myself together, stood up, and got in the car. Ise was with me. She didn't say a word. She was just watching me. Seeing that girl was making me nervous. I was going to tell my mother and father what had happened as soon as I got home. They needed to know what had happened. Finally, we arrived home. My mother and father had already they were asleep. I went to my room. I uncovered my faces and lay down on the bed. I felt very tired and exhausted. I was just trying to fall asleep when the door opened. I looked up with a start. It was Ise. She was just standing in front of the door. "What do you want from me? Why are you doing this?" I said. Ise said, "I don't want anything from you. There's something I forgot to give you. I came to give it to you." Quote. What did I say? Ise threw a bag she was holding behind her back at me. I was left to her out of fear. I said, "What is this?" "Your birthday present. Open it and look," she said. I was scared. I didn't know what was in it. "I don't want it. Neither you nor your gift." I told her to get out of my room. Ise said, "If you don't open that gift, I'll stand here until morning." "Okay, I'll open it, but tomorrow I'll throw your gift in the trash. Just so you know," I said. She smiled without saying anything. My eyes were on her. I quickly opened the bag, but since there was no light in the room, I couldn't see much inside. "Can you turn on the light from there?" I said, "I can't see what's inside." Ise said, "You don't need light to see what's inside the bag." I said, "How do you mean?" At that moment, the things inside the bag started to move. Huge black scorpions suddenly fell onto my bed. Some got on me, in my hair, even under the covers. I jumped out of bed screaming. They were stuck to my body. "God damn you. Are you out of your mind? What are these things?" I said and started yelling for my mother and father. As I ran to the door, Ise closed the door and went out. The bag was small, but dozens of scorpions came out of it. They had swarmed all over the room. I screamed and screamed. I heard my mother and father's voices from outside. They were trying to open the door. I tried to explain, stuttering and shouting. My mother turned on the light. She looked all over the room, but there wasn't a single scorpion. My mother thought I was lying and slandering Ise. "Mom, I swear I'm not lying." She came and put the bag on me. I threw it. When I opened it, scorpions swarmed all over me. "He does this on purpose. He's trying to drive me crazy, to scare me. He even ruined my birthday." I said, "You have no idea what happened to me." My mother shouted, "Go to bed now. We'll talk about this with you tomorrow," he said, and she closed the door and left the room. But before I closed the door, I made eye contact with Ise. That mocking look in her eyes explained everything. After my parents left, I went back to bed. I pressed my pillow to my mouth and cried loudly. I hated everything, life, my mother, my father. Most of all, Ise. I hadn't loved her since the first day she arrived. I said, "I know what I'll do with her tomorrow." I couldn't sleep until the morning. Ise would knock on my room door from time to time and say, "I like your birthday gift," and giggle. Sometimes I still felt the scorpions feed on my body. I looked around, but there was nothing. That night was a nightmare for me. At first light, while my parents were still asleep, I got dressed and left the house. I called my close friend Daphne, met with her, and told her everything. Daphne told me, "Do you know, actually, yesterday I noticed something strange with that girl. You were always acting strangely during the party. You were talking as if there were others around you. Actually, I was talking to you today. I was going to come to talk about it, but you acted faster than me," she said. "Look, Daphne, I've been experiencing some very strange things since that girl came to us. I think she did something to me. I don't know anything. I know a Hoja. If there's anyone who knows about these things, let's go and talk. I can't take it anymore." When I try to talk to my mother about this, she yells at me. She puts the word out. I have no one else to turn to. "Please help me," I said. "I don't know anyone, but my father has a close friend. He's a Hoja at the mosque. If you'd like, we can go to him. He comes to our house sometimes. He's a trustworthy and good man. I think we should go to him," she said. "Okay, then let's go," I said. "Let me get his number from my father first, so I can call him and tell him I'm leaving," and she walked away. She immediately called her father and asked for her friend's number. We hit the road, wasting no time. When I asked a few questions about this man on the way, Daphne said his name was Hakan and that he was a very close friend of her father's. "He's been teaching at that mosque for years. He surely knows this kind of thing," he said. A glimmer of hope lit up inside me. Maybe this man could help us. Finally, we arrived at the mosque. I called Defne Hoka and told him we were in front of the mosque. Soon, the man approached us. He was a serious but level-headed man in his 50s. When he saw us, he said, "Welcome, girls. Don't stand here. Let's go inside. You can tell your problems there." Quote, when we entered, I don't know why, but I felt a sense of relief. At that moment, I couldn't hold back my tears and began to cry. We went into a room and sat down. Hakan Hoka asked me, "Tell me, girl, what's your problem?" I pulled myself together, wiped my tears, and told him everything from the beginning. Hakan Hoka listened carefully, then nodded and asked, "Obviously, he knows about what you've been through with that girl, but I don't understand why you're going through this. Do you have any animosity towards her?" Quote, "No, this is the first time I've seen her, but I've had a very bad feeling inside me since the first time. I haven't had a single bad conversation with her." Quote, "He just has a bad energy. I'm having constant nightmares, but I can't explain it to my family." I said, "My family always takes his side." After listening to me attentively, Hakan Hoka pulled out his phone and called a friend. He briefly explained the boys and hung up. He wrote an address on a piece of paper and handed it over to us. "Girls, go to this address. Don't worry. He's very trustworthy. He can help you. What you're saying isn't my area of expertise. Ahmet Hoka is the solution to your problems." I spoke with him. I told him you'd be there shortly. "Go, don't waste any time," he said. We stood up, thanked him, and set off immediately. The address wasn't far away. It was an apartment. We entered the building and went up to the 4th floor. We knocked on the door. A young, rather beautiful woman opened the door. "Come in, Ahmet Hoka is waiting for you," she said. When we entered, a smiling and very friendly man in his 60s greeted us. "Girls, welcome. Sit down," he said. We sat down. A moment later, the older gentleman returned with a thick book in his hand. Ahmet Hoka said to me, "I'm listening." I told him the same thing I'd told Hakan Hoka. Then he asked, "Can you pluck a strand of your hair and give it to me?" I said, "Of course," and I gave him my hair. Hoka placed my hair on the table and recited some prayers over it. He ran his finger over it 3 times. Then he looked into his eyes and said, "Repeat what I said." As he repeated what he said, I stopped short. Looking deeper into his eyes, he said, "I've dealt with them." I asked who? "Jinns," he said. "No, I haven't. What business do I have with them?" Quote, I said. Ahmet Hoka started praying again. I was repeating what he'd said. After a while, he raised his head. "So why didn't you like me?" he asked. I swallowed hard. "I don't know. I've never felt warm to him since the first moment I saw him. Besides, after he arrived, my parents were very nice to him. They were a little colder to me. Perhaps I was a little jealous," I thought. Ahmet Hoka asked, "Do you know who Ika is?" I reassured myself that it meant no. Ahmet Hoka took a deep breath and said, "There are protective genies around her. She's half human, half genie, and she's here right now. She's watching you." Quote, after those words, my body went cold. I felt a cold wind on my neck. It was as if I'd been cut off from the world. I couldn't speak. Ahmet Hoka looked into her eyes and said, "You don't have to apologize. You have to beg her to forgive you." Quote, as I burst into tears and tried to say, "I didn't do anything bad to her," Ahmet Hoka cut me off and said, "You have to apologize. You have to beg her to forgive you. Otherwise, she'll never leave you alone." Quote, suddenly, everything started to grow before my eyes. Everything went black, my body tightened, and I lost my breath. I couldn't stand it and fainted. When I opened my eyes, Ahmet Hoka was trying to wake me. "Wake up, my daughter, are you okay?" he said. I still haven't recovered. I asked, "What happened? What happened to me?" Quote, Ahmet Hoka said, "You're going to tell me what you saw. Don't you remember what you told me?" I asked. Ahmet Hoka, "I didn't tell you anything. I suddenly felt unwell and fainted while you were praying. Now tell me what you saw," he said. I told him everything I'd just seen. Quote, "Look, my daughter, whatever you saw and heard there, it's all true. Just know this, that girl is very dangerous. Get her out of the house immediately. I'll talk to your family. I'll tell them what happened, but if she stays at your house any longer, your family will be completely destroyed," he said. It was terrifying. I didn't know what to do. I immediately grabbed my phone and called my father and called him to my address. My father came and listened to everything from the Hoka. He was angry at me at first, but then, when he saw how bad I was, I realized his mistake. Ahmet Hoka told my father, You can't take her away from that house. She won't listen to you. I'll send her away, but you shouldn't be home. Anyone else in the house besides Eve should leave immediately. My father picked up the phone and called my mother. He told her to leave the house without letting Eve know. My mother said, "Okay," and hung up. A few minutes later, my mother called back. I left the house. What happened? Tell me, he said. My father asked, was Eve home when you left? My mother was also home. I'm out now, but I don't understand what's going on, he said. My father said, I'll tell you everything later. Don't come home until I get there, and hung up. Ahmet Hoca said he had prescribed a protection prayer. He handed over 3 amulets and said, after midnight tonight, take a shower and cleanse yourself of all evil. Then, perform ablution. Place these amulets on your horns. Never let anyone you don't know into your home again. I looked at Ahmet Hoca and said, okay, Is. Don't worry, I'll send her away. My father and I left. We went to my mother and told her what had happened. We had to stay outside for hours. We didn't go home until the Hoca called us. It was night. We were still sitting in a cafe. Finally, Ahmet Hoca called us and said everything was fine and we could go home. But he added one more thing, you shouldn't be surprised by anything. Quote, he said, we didn't understand exactly what he meant, until we walked through the door of the house. When we entered the house, we couldn't believe our eyes. All the furniture in the house was turned upside down. There were no doors or windows left unbroken. Our 3 names were written on the walls. Underneath our names was the sentence, I will come back for you. The scariest thing was that this writing was written in blood. After this scene, we couldn't stay in that house anymore. We packed up the house. We had it repaired. Then we sold the house for a reasonable price and moved out for good. Years have passed since this incident, but we still couldn't understand who Is was and why she made us go through such things. When I asked my mother if she had experienced anything strange after Is arrived, she said, I don't remember anything bad about Is. He said, in their eyes, Is was a perfect, beautiful and good person. But she understood that I didn't like her at first sight, and from that moment on, she started messing with me. Thank God, we managed to get out of this nightmare without anything worse happening. That's the whole story, friends. Thank you for listening. I love you so much. If you're not yet subscribed to my channel, you can subscribe and turn on notifications to be informed about new videos. See you in new videos. Goodbye. Yeah.
Dog just